Money Radio, discussing the business of making and spending money.
Hello, you are welcome to today's edition of Money Radio, a program that brings to you the latest development in Nigeria's business and economic cycles and issues of businesses around the world. My name is Innocent Odo, and today we are talking about agribusiness, and specifically we are looking at the honey value chain in Nigeria. And I have with me in the studio Mr. Kes Hammond. Look at the issue. Kes, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you.
I also have Paul Owadema. Paul, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Now, in recent times, the Nigerian honey industry sector has been declared as one of the best in terms of its quality of product. But Nigeria is having difficulties in accessing the European market, which is estimated to generate about $10 billion annually for Nigeria if Nigeria meets the standard required by the European nations. And let me also remind you that in the European market constitute about 35% of the global market of honey and honey byproducts in the world. And it is therefore very important that the Nigerians, this subsector of the Nigerian agricultural sector is important. We improve it in order to help Nigeria in its quest to remove itself from the dungeon of economic deprivation brought about by the COVID-19, and of course the quest by the federal government to revive all sectors of the Nigerian economy to add value to the nation. Paul, you are very familiar with agricultural developments, and of course talking about honey, it may sound very, very not too familiar an area for some Nigerians, but I know experts like you will help us dissect this particular sector to see what value that we can add, taking advantage of what it has offered us.
Thank you very much. Honey is one of the, if we are talking about diversification of Nigerian economy, honey is one area that can be one area of agriculture that can be diversified to generate foreign exchange for Nigeria. Nigeria, presently, we import about $2 billion worth of honey annually. It's a very huge drain on our foreign exchange. To lose such an amount of money annually through the importation of honey. So that is why it is very critical that we must be able to find a way of growing it more in Nigeria and also export. Honey, don't forget, honey is an industry that presently is dominated by China, honey exports.
Yes.
And it's an area that Nigeria needs to key in, because other African countries are taking advantage of the honey demand around the world to increase their productivity, and a lot of African countries are doing very well. Ethiopia is doing well, Uganda, Tanzania, they are all doing very well in the sector, in the agriculture sector. So it's an area that Nigeria must key in to increase our access to foreign exchange. There's also a huge market in the country because Nigerians consume 400,000 tons annually. That's what we consume. And we can barely produce just less than 10% from local producers. So it shows you the enormity of potentials that are waiting for farmers to come and exploit it, and opportunities for farmers and for government to do something about the sector.
Yes, we have opportunities for government and farmers to take a cue from other African countries that have done well in honey production. As Paul has said, we produce barely 10% of our honey requirements in the country. So what we're asking is, what is holding us back, despite all our potentials? What is holding us back? there is a $10 billion annual expected annual revenue from this sector. And of course, there's a huge market for it, both in Nigeria, Africa, and of course, Europe, that controls about 35% of the honey market globally. So what exactly is holding us back?
Whenever we discuss the issue of agriculture here, I leave the studio with some sort of anguish because we depend on oil so much, and oil seems to have blinded Nigerians about other potential that are just there waiting to be harnessed. I was just reading a report that Nigeria has the potential. Nigeria produces like 15,000 tons of honey annually. But Nigeria has the potential of producing 800,000 tons. That means we are less than 3% our potential. Honey wax, we produce 2,500 tons of honey wax annually. We have the potential of producing 70,000 tons of honey wax annually. And like you said, the potential is there. Not just that the potential is there, the market is there.
Yes.
The mere fact that Nigerians, let me put it this way, like Mr. Wadiman just mentioned, we import honey to the tune of $2 billion annually. That means the market is here. Apart from what we have the potential of selling out, the market is here.
Yes.
Another sign that we can look at to say that the market is here, you can see that, of course, we live in the system, and we can see how criminals, I will call them criminals, mix just something that looks thick and sell to unsuspecting consumers as honey. And we go out buying these things. Some of them produce almost what we can equate to Malassi. Malassi, that thick liquid that you produce when you are that comes out when you are producing sugar.
Yes.
Sometimes people just produce Malassi or package Malassi and sell to the public. And people buy these things. People who, for example, have health conditions that they are trying to shy away from the intake of sugar, they go out buying these things, and they look. If the market were there, if the product were available, that market, people know how to test for honey to see which one is fake and which one is real. And sometimes people are forced to take these things, not because they are fools, but because they just find it difficult getting real honey.
Yes.
That tells you that the market is there. It's just to produce. Now, to the question you asked, what is holding us back? Maybe I should say policy.
Okay.
Policy and direction. Policy direction. We have ministries. We over the past several years, I could even go as far as saying the decade, because the Obasanjo regime started with giving agriculture attention. And the Yar'Adua administration continued, the Jonathan administration continued, and this administration, the Buhari administration, is really pressing forward for agricultural sustainability. But and monies have been devoted to those lofty goals, or maybe the monies are not being well directed, because honey, for example, has potential of bringing huge foreign reserves, but these things are not yet, because maybe we are not harnessing what we ought to harness to make sure that we produce honey, enough honey for local consumption before we talk about
international market.
Yeah.
Okay, still remaining with you, Kes. You talked about quality honey now. You made mention of something that people also concoct and want to sell as honey.
Yes.
Which means standard is a problem.
Standards is a
And that
problem.
standard has been the reason Nigeria honey, irrespective of the fact that we have not produced to proportional to our potential, we are not even getting access to the European market because of standards.
Yes.
So what exactly must we do right away? Because I understand that the Nigerian Export Promotion Council is trying to take some steps to ensure that they put this whole thing as a policy into place so that the standard will be there. But right now, I don't think we are at that level for now because some technical session held in May dwelt so much on that. But I don't know how far they've gone. No information yet from that department of government whether we have actually attained that standard. And of course, they require what they call the third country listing certification for the European market. So you can see that while we delay, other African countries are taking advantage of the opportunities being offered by the European markets, and they are making serious money out of this venture.
Look, some of these government agencies are making some effort in terms of sensitizing the public.
Yes.
But I think they need to work in synergy. They need to collaborate. Some of these agencies may be working, I suspect they may be working in isolation or independent of other government agencies. For what reason, I don't know, but they may be working independent of other government agencies. Take, for example, the Standards Organization of Nigeria. They should be working in tandem with these agencies to make sure that standards are followed. Let's glean from from the experience we are having with other agricultural products. Mr. Paul and I recently discussed that where up to 76% of Nigeria's agricultural exports are rejected because of the issue of standards. Yes. And he made that point. I will invite him to make that point to where he says standards are not being followed, because he made that point here when we last discussed the issue of standards. Standards are not being followed. And because standards are not being followed, we are failing to make use of or to leverage on the opportunities we have in those markets, those Occidental markets.
Turning to you again, Paul, the issue of standards, we cannot wish that away. It's very important because apart from even honey, there are other products we have in Nigeria which cannot access the European market. So now honey is something that is appreciated everywhere. I remember sometime traveling to one country where I found a shop where you have honey from Burkina Faso, from Mali, and from other places. But checking that kind of shop, you didn't find anything from Nigeria, and it was really disturbing. Then one question that came up was that the issue of standards. The Nigerian products don't measure up to standards. What does it take to measure our products up to standards that can access European markets? What does it take?
Thank you very much for that question. And I'm happy you mentioned third country listing.
Yes.
Third country listing is the list of countries that have been approved or stand the chance of being approved to export honey to Europe. Now, for you, in fact, as I'm talking to you now, you have only about 5 or so countries from Africa who are in that list. Talk about Cameroon, Uganda, Ethiopia, Tanzania, and the other one has just escaped me. But those are the 5 African countries that are on that list. Yes. They are the ones that met the standard of what they call residue management plan. Yes. Residue management plan of the European Union is that the honey must contain the minimum level of residue that could be allowed to enter European Union inside any honey. Now, countries that were listed in the among the third country initiative, these are countries that have residue management plan. So if Nigeria is serious, if those managing our agricultural sector, they are serious, the first thing they should do is to make sure that Nigeria has residue management plan in line with what the European Union wants. So you cannot be sitting coolly in your office and wishfully thinking that honey will be allowed to come from Nigeria. You must do what is the needful. So what do they have to do? They have to liaise with the European Union. Ask them, what is it that we need to do? And one of the conditions the European Union gave is that you must have residue management plan. They will give you the instruction of what should be inside any content of honey at the level it should be before it can enter their country. I just, when I hear some of our official policymakers talk, they seem to dance around the whole issue. What effort are they making to make sure that Nigeria has a residue management plan before they begin to cry about the fact that they cannot be able to access European Union markets? That is the key thing that needs to be done. And one of the people that should do it is the Association of Apiculture. They need to put pressure, because the European Union itself is saying that it is, if your country is not in their list, if you are not countries and you are a bee farmer, put pressure on your country. Are you getting it? So that your country can set up agency in the Ministry of Agriculture that will set up the residue management plan, so that they will now liaise with the European Union. Are you getting it? So that your honey can meet the standard, and if you didn't meet it, they will tell you what you have to do to meet the standard. That is what we need to do right now if we are serious.
Okay, if you're just joining us, we've been talking about honey and honey byproducts and how we may exploit the opportunities provided by this important sector to add value to the Nigerian economy. And we will take a short break. When we return, we'll continue with the discussion.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it now is my very special pleasure and privilege to ask His Royal Majesty, the Sultan of Sokoto, the chairman or chairperson of the leadership group, to come forward and join me and hold on to one bit of this cloth so that we can jointly unveil the bigger, better, deeper Levoque.
Money Radio, discussing the business of making and spending money.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, we're still talking about honey and honey byproducts, a very important subsector of the agri sector, and how we are going to use it to add value to the Nigerian economy. And specifically, we're talking about the quest for Nigeria's bid to enter the European market, to access the European honey market, which is said to control 35% of the global honey market, as the case may be. I'm still in the studio with Paul Wadima and Kes Hammond. And Paul, you were making a very strong statement about the residue management plan. And this actually has to key into the policy of trying to revamp the sector. Now, in May this year, the Nigerian Export Promotion Council took some steps to see how Nigeria can meet the standards set by Europeans, so that we can access the market. This is, this is September, and there's several months gone. I don't think we have heard any other thing apart from the policy statement they have made. So, but this is a very serious business, a very serious sector that we have to look into properly and see how we're going to exploit this opportunity. If other African countries like you mentioned, like Cameroon and Uganda, can be listed as third country with that certification to sell honey to the European market, what stops Nigeria? Why do we have to wait until God knows when before we do the right thing in this country?
The Export Promotion Council you mentioned, they can only be facilitators, but the major stakeholder that need to drive this is the Ministry of Agriculture, because the European Union are not going to listen to Export Promotion Council because they are not the professionals. The certifications that European Union wants must be signed by a veterinary doctor that is approved by the Ministry of Agriculture, and it has to be even the residue management plan must be resident in the Ministry of Agriculture. It's not something that left for. I would have been happy if I had said that it was Ministry of Agriculture that was saying some of these things, because they are the ones that could make a way out for these farmers in Nigeria to be able to export effectively. Because the European Union don't take standardization very seriously. Let me give you a typical example. Between 2002 and 2004, Chinese bees was banned in Europe. Why? Because there was so much chlorophenicol inside the content of the honey from China. So Europe is very careful about some of these things. For 2 years, there was no, and don't forget that China is a leader in this sector. But they were banned for 2 years because one of the things they don't want is to have too much antibiotics inside their honey. So if you are rearing bee and you are using antibiotics, you are using pesticides, you are using when you want to treat it, you use medicines that are not organic. Those are the things they look out for. So if we want to take advantage of the European market, these are the education that agriculture practitioners in Nigeria need to be taught, so that when there is a good synergy between Nigeria's Ministry of Agriculture and the European Union, then we have a product that we can present that is sellable in the European Union.
Okay.
Funny enough, what you're saying is I see somebody following us who has made a comment about beekeeping policy on the screen there. I can't look at it, I can't see it clearly, but well, maybe you can see clearly.
What we're actually saying is that we can see that even the beekeepers in the country also do have some challenges, not being properly guided on how to produce these things because of some practices that have been employed over the years to produce our kind of honey. And I'm thinking that it is time that the government, take the people along, carry the people along, and let them change some of these practices that is producing the kind of honey that is not, cannot access the European market. For instance, the federal government and of course the agency that is charged with the responsibility of implementing these policies should actually provide items like say smokers, modern smokers, to help the bee farmers instead of the old ways of burning everything the way they do it and the traditional method, which is certainly not producing them. But I don't think they have enough. Even if they donated, they don't have enough smokers and other things like beehives and the rest of them to inspire the people to do more. So one more, how do we do this going forward?
Well, in my opinion, there is so much. Let's talk about ministries and departments and agencies now. There's so much the Ministry of Agriculture can do. There are some agencies there. You remember I was mentioning synergy between the departments and agencies. I think that Ministry of Agriculture and NAFDAC, an agency like NAFDAC, is not far off. That Standards Organization of Nigeria is not far off from that. I mean, they can synergize. Then, what about the National Orientation Agency? You see, many of these things, I don't think the National Orientation Agency, I hardly hear about them to start with, but I don't think they should be limited, or their activities should be limited to just advertising. It should be, I think they have enough staff to go deep down into these nooks and crannies where these honeys are produced and educate people. This is what is expected of us in this area. This is what we can do, and then liaise between them and government. What can government do to help these people? Because we are looking at a $10 billion in a potential industry, and to see that we are playing with that and looking only at oil is saddening. Uh, like I said,
No,
there
it
needs
is.
to be-
It is disturbing, really, if you have to depend on oil when we have what the economists would call low-hanging fruits.
Yeah.
And this agriculture actually, gives up an opportunity for Nigerians. Production of honey is a well-known industry worldwide because of even the byproducts of honey are also sellable anywhere in the world.
It's not just food; it's medicine.
It's medicine. So you can see that it is a whole lot of a whole new dimension to economic revival if we invest in this sector. $10 billion annually is not a joke by any standard.
We're talking about foreign
We're
exchange.
talking about foreign exchange, especially now that the economy is in a serious strait. So I think the agencies of government and even the federal Ministry of Agriculture, the parent ministry, should not take this lightly and move to, in fact, hire professionals. One thing I notice in this whole sector is that you hardly sometimes the professional requirements in all this may not necessarily be available for us, or may not necessarily be put on the table, and that is why we're suffering what we're suffering. So time is no longer on our side. I want you to chip in something. How do we go from here? What must we do now? What kind of investment do we do? And what in this sector, how do we now harness the people? Because we have talked so much and so much has been said about, reviving the economy. Now we have an opportunity in this sector. What must we do now going forward?
Government needs to stop playing lip service. There are many unemployed people out there, even in the agriculture sector. There are many people who are unemployed. This production of honey is not what I may call land intensive. You don't need a vast plot of land, because that's the complaint of some farmers who don't have land. This is not land intensive. It's just technique intensive, so to speak. So government should stop playing lip service. If we see this kind of potential, there is need to actually engage people, educate people, and give them the necessary incentives that they need to produce honey. Because, like we said, there is a market there. We started by saying that Nigeria is less than 3% production producing
Yes,
our potential.
potentials. So
So
Paul,
the market is there.
please, in just once, about 30 seconds.
Okay.
Yes.
B is a business that any Nigerian can start small or start big. With 50,000 naira, a Nigerian can start B farm. With 5 million, you can start B farm. So in government poverty alleviation program, instead of giving people 5,000 naira, allow the money to accumulate and let it reach up to 100,000. You use it and actually empower people to go into bee farming, and that would be the real poverty alleviation. Instead of giving people 5,000 naira, they will go and spend it. Why not allow the money to accumulate, reach like 10 months, and you give them 100,000 naira, let them go into bee farming. With 50,000, they can start they'll start bee farming. And in collaboration with the Agriculture Association, they will train them, the young men, young women, train them how to do this, and they will kick off from there, and we will multiply the tons of bee in the country.
Oh, thank you so much, gentlemen. It's been a wonderful moment discussing about Nigeria's quest to access the European honey market, which is estimated to have 35% of the global market. And Nigeria is also estimated to gain about $10 billion of foreign exchange if we improve in the production of our honey, and of course make it up to standard that the Europeans want. So it's on that note that we call it a day in this edition of Money Radio. Thank you for joining us, and remain blessed. We promise we're going to give you a fresh edition when next we come. Bye-bye.